Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Hope everyone is doing great in their life. Let's solve today's Leetcode problem 3186 maximum total damage with spell casting. Okay, what does the problem statement state? A magician has various spells. You are given an array power where each element represents the damage of the spell. Okay, multiple spells can have same damage. Okay, so understood. So power can also contain duplicate elements. Okay, it is it is a known fact that if a magician decides to cast a spell with a damage of power of I, then they cannot cast any spell with damage of power of I minus 2, power of I minus 1, power of I plus 1 and power of I plus 2. Each spell can be cast only once. Return the maximum possible total damage that magician can cast. Okay, so here are the powers of different spells, and each spell has a power of this particular value, power of 5. Okay, so this spell has a power of 3, this spell has a power of 4. Okay, let me jump back here. Okay, so this has a power of 1, power of 1, power of 3 and power of 4. So when a particular magician casts a spell of this, let's say he has cast the spell which is power 1, that means he cannot cast a different spell which has power 2 and 3. So existing spells power plus 1 plus 2 and also minus 1 minus 2. Okay, so and we have to return the maximum damage we can a particular magician can do. Okay, so let's, in this example we have powers as 1 1 3 4. So the idea what I would do is I would first create a map, okay, called frequency, which will contain the spells and the corresponding frequencies. So here spell 1 has occurred twice. Okay, spell 3 has occurred 1, 4 has occurred once. Okay, so and what are all the unique powers we have? We have 1, 3 and 4. Okay, and in the problem they have mentioned damage. So if we know the frequency, okay, so they have mentioned that a particular spell cannot be used multiple times. Okay, this spell cannot be used, but I can use a different spell with the same power. Okay, so if I know all the spells which has same power, okay, so I can just multiply the power times the frequency of that power, right? So that is what this frequency will come will come in handy. Okay, so if you know a spell, all the spells which has same power, then I can simply multiply it with frequency. Okay, so damage made by a particular unique power is basically the unique power times the frequency times the unique frequency of that particular unique power. Okay, so let's try to derive a recursive relation for the given problem statement. Okay, so as here we know I have a unique powers of these elements. Okay, so let's define a function called f of I, which will tell maximum damage with the spells, okay, from I till the end of the array. Okay, so this we have, let's say we have a magic function called f of I, which will tell the maximum damage if I use spells from ith index till the end of the array. Okay, so if I reach the end of the array, that means there are no more elements in the array. Okay, then the damage I can do is basically 0. So when I is out of bounds, okay, when I is greater than or equal to n, where n is the number of elements in this unique powers, then there is no damage I can do. Okay, and there are two other possibilities. Okay, one that I will skip the current spell and go with the subsequent spells, or I can, if I have to utilize this spell, that means this spell, okay, if let's take the skip one. Okay, if I skip this particular spell, that means the damage made so far would be f of I plus 1, which is the damage made by the rest of the elements. Okay, I hope you understood. So f of I would be equal to I plus 1 when I try to skip the ith spell. Okay, if I don't want to skip it, okay, if I want to consider the spell, that means I am considering the, I am using the existing spell. Okay, so if when I use the existing spell, what is the damage made by the existing spell, which is this one. Okay, along with that, if I choose to consider this spell, that means I should not consider spells with I plus 1 and I plus 2 as it was stated in the problem statement. So I have to look for the new index. I have to look for a new index where the spell is actually greater than the existing spell plus 2. Okay, so here I have written the recursive relation. Okay, damage made by the ith spell plus what is the next possible index which I have to consider. Okay, so here the next possible index, okay, will basically tell the power, the unique power which is greater than the current power plus 2. Okay, I need an index. Okay, I need an index which has a unique power which is greater than or equal to the current power plus 2. Okay, if I know that particular index, I can basically calculate the damage made from that particular index till the end plus the current damage which was made by the ith spell. Okay, so this is basically the recursive relation for the problem statement. Okay, if we simply implement this, okay, then there are chances that you will be ending up with the same you will be calculating the same damage for same indexes multiple times. Okay, so the idea is to use the memoization along with the recursive relation. Okay, so I have written the code. Let's jump back to the code. Okay, so as I mentioned, first I need to calculate the frequencies. So I have just looping to the each power, and I am updating my frequency accordingly. Okay, I have taken tree map. The reason being, in the tree map, all the keys will be stored in the sorted order. Okay, since we need the unique powers to be stored in the sorted order, so that's the reason I am using tree map here, and from the tree map I can basically get all the keys. Okay, this way I can directly get the unique powers, the sorted order, and the corresponding frequencies also computed. Okay, now once I have done the pre-processing, okay, so as I mentioned, there are few states which are actually repeating in this recursive relation. So I just defined an array called max damage, which will be equal to the length of unique powers plus 1. Okay, and I've just populated with all the elements as -1 just to indicate that the state has been not processed yet. Okay, so if I look at the iterative solution, this is the same logic which we have defined in our recursive state. Okay, so if you see the first state, okay, when the current index is greater than n, that means I have to return 0. Okay, so I have defined a function called recursive max, which will tell the maximum damage, okay, which can be done with the spells from ith index till the end. Okay, so here I have just defined n equal to the unique powers, which is the length, and if you see here, the first condition is basically if the current index is greater than or equal to then I will straight away return 0. If not, I have two cases, either I can skip or I can consider. Okay, when I skip, I will directly get the maximum damage from I plus 1 spells. Okay, now in order to calculate the damage made for the second use case where I will consider the ith spell. Okay, so firstly, this part will basically tell me the damage made by the ith spell standalone when I consider it, and the next one is the damage made by j, which is the next possible index which I have to consider. Okay, where j is basically this thing. Okay, I just took the next element and then I have identified the index j such that it has to be less than or equal to the current power plus 2. Okay, once this condition is as long as this condition is valid, that means those indexes are not valid indexes for us. Okay, I have to increment as long as this particular condition gets violated. Okay, once this particular condition is violated, that means I can consider the jth spell for my calculations. Okay, so that is what this recursive relation tells, and then I'm just taking the maximum of skip and consider, and then I'm returning it. In the memorization, all we have to do is to populate the result into the damages, and in the initial stage itself we will check whether it was the current state was already calculated or not. If it was already calculated, that means if it is not equal to 1, then I will return the answer, or else I will do my computation. Okay, so this is recursive way. Iterative way is also similar, is also same, where we will start processing from the end. Okay, so in the iterative, I know if there are no elements to process, that means the damage made is 0. Okay, so that's the reason I have mentioned the damage made, damage of n is equal to 0. Then I will start from the n minus 1 spell, which is the last spell, and go all the way till the initial element. Okay, now if I try to skip it, this is the same piece of code, okay, which we have been written over here. Okay, once if you are good with your recursive relations and the recursive piece of code, then iterative is it's like a piece of cake. Okay, you just have to remove recursive calls and use the pre-calculated results. Okay, so here if I skip the ith element, that means I will consider the damage of I plus 1, and I am getting the first index j such that it will the constraint is violated. Once I got the j, then I will basically consider the damage made by the ith power and the damage made by the jth, maximum damage from j till the end. So in the end I have to return the maximum of these two. So that is what I have done over here. Okay, and I'm just calling this function and returning the solution. Okay, if let's try to submit the solution. Yeah, yeah, all the test cases were passed, and yeah, it is pretty efficient solution in terms of memory, because we are only using these extra memory in the recursive stack. In the recursive approach, there will also be a recursive stack which will be involved. So the iterative approach is kind of better. It is actually consuming less memory only in terms of the recursive stack. Rest everything is same. Yep. Yeah, that's all about this problem. Do subscribe to my coding channel for more such coding videos. Thank you.